The focus of this lesson is to understand AD Connect. Let's understand that with the help of certain diagrams. Let's say on your premise you got something like a domain. Let's call that domain as rainingcloud.de. So this rainingcloud.de is like a fictitious company. Let's also assume that it has certain domain controllers. So this is our server which has Active Directory installed on it. So this will be your domain controller. On the domain controller, you got several user objects, right? And they may be in different departments. Let's call them as, let's say, Mark, Joe, Mary, etc. And there will be thousands of other users working in different departments in different geographies. Okay. Now, with the advent of cloud, your company has started adopting certain applications in software as a service side of business. So that's where you thought that you will go ahead and utilize the features of Azure Active Directory. Okay, so this directory is in the cloud. So you have decided to take benefit of Azure Active Directory so that you can onboard SaaS-based applications like Workday, Concur, Salesforce, and Office 365 for mailing purposes. All right. That also means that you want to synchronize your identities from on-premise Active Directory to Azure Active Directory. Gone are the days when we used to think that on-premise is secure. Everything which is inside your boundaries is secure and everything outside the boundary is not secure, which is on the internet. Well, we are now moving on to an advanced world with advanced set of tools as well that gives us furthermore identities into the transactions that happen between the identities and the SaaS-based applications. But taking a step back and talking about Azure Active Directory Connect, the objective is to synchronize these identities, identity 1, 2, and 3, to Azure Active Directory so that these identities can then access the SaaS-based applications. So what you're going to do is install another member server, provision that member server, and install AD Connect right here. Okay, so I'm going to call it as, let's say, AD Connect server or something, right? So that's my AD Connect member server. Of course, you got to configure that AD Connect so that it can go and look into the user objects in your domain controller, in your domain, and then synchronize that to Azure Active Directory, right? So the AD Connect tool must have permissions to go and connect to the on-prem DC as well as Azure Active Directory. So you must be a global admin to do that synchronization, okay? So once everything is set up, you will be able to do a synchronization between the identities. Okay, remember that this synchronization is not two-way synchronization, it's just one way. So when users are created on your premise, they get synchronized to Azure AD and not vice versa. Well, there is an option to synchronize passwords from cloud to on-premise. It's called as password write back, but you need to enable that when you're installing the AD Connect tool. Okay, without that, the password does not get synchronized from Azure to on-prem. By default, the password hashes do get synchronized from on-prem to Azure AD, but not vice versa. Okay, so just to summarize, what is AD Connect? It's a tool that will let you synchronize your on-prem identities to Azure Active Directory. This synchronization happens at an interval of 30 minutes by default. However, you can get into the tool and change that behavior, but by default it is 30 minutes. You can also use PowerShell to push that synchronization. So let's say you got an object created in Active Directory and you want to sync the object right now, then you can run that PowerShell command or launch the AD Connect tool to run that manual synchronization. But by default, it is 30 minutes. On the Azure side, you will see when the synchronization happened. So you can launch the Azure Active Directory portal, and then you will be able to see when the synchronization last happened or last occurred. Is the Active Directory Connect healthy or not? Are there any user objects that are not synchronized? So out of 10,000 objects, 5 objects had certain attribute related issues and they are not able to synchronize themselves to Azure Active Directory. That's AD Connect Health. And you will be able to see that on the Azure portal. As an Azure admin, you are responsible for AD Connect, synchronization of user objects, and also identifying the health status of the AD Connect tool. So you log into Azure portal and check that health status every time and again. But it is always a best practice to go ahead and get notified if there are any issues. So every time an issue is identified, a notification is then triggered and emailed to you. AD Connect is a very important tool to let that synchronization happen from on-prem Active Directory to the cloud-based directory services with Microsoft called as Azure AD.